try that one more time. How are you guys doing today? Good to hear. Just want to make sure you guys were awake. Now, my name is Peter. I'll be your mission briefing officer, and I'm here today to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in the space program today, specifically with the International Space Station. Now, the International Space Station is a partnership between 15 countries from all over the world, all coming together to make a place of science, an orbiting laboratory doing scientific research off of the Earth for all of us who are here on Earth. Now, the International Space Station is orbiting above our heads at an altitude of 250 miles. It is traveling 17,500 miles an hour, and at this speed, the astronauts on board the International Space Station experience 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets a day. Translates out to roughly a sunrise and a sunset every 90 minutes or an hour and a half. The International Space Station itself is also very large. The interior is larger than a 6-bedroom house, and the exterior, as seen in the graphic, is about the size of an American football field. Now, because it is so large, you can actually see the International Space Station flying overhead where you live without needing a telescope. You just need to look up at the night sky at the right time. Now, to find out when the right time is to look up at the night sky where you live to see the International Space Station, just head on over to spotthestation.nasa.gov. It'll pull up this webpage right here. You just click where it says sign up, and it will ask for your location information as well as an email address. If you supply this information to NASA, they will send you an email update anytime the International Space Station is visible where you live. Now, right now, on board the International Space Station, we do have the first half of our crew of Expedition 48 currently on board the ISS. They had actually the second half launched up yesterday and will not be docking, though, until tomorrow, very late tomorrow evening. They'll be docking to the International Space Station, and then we'll have our full crew of Expedition 48. But why don't we go ahead and meet the 3 crew members who are currently on board the International Space Station. Commanding Expedition 48 is NASA astronaut Jeff Williams. Now, Jeff Williams is an American astronaut, and he's flying in space on his 4th mission. Now, after this flight, he will actually have the record for the most time spent in space over his career for an American. Alexei Ovchinin is a Russian cosmonaut flying in space right now, serving as flight engineer for this mission. This is his first time flying in space, and the footage you are seeing is him training for this mission over at the Johnson Space Center in a facility you can see if you take the red tram tour today. Finally, we have Oleg Skripkoshka, another Russian cosmonaut flying in space right now, serving as flight engineer for this mission. This is his second time flying in space, and in addition to being a Russian cosmonaut, he is also a test pilot for Russia. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the 3 crew members currently on board the International Space Station. And as I said, we do have 3 more crew members in space right now. They're working on reaching the International Space Station to dock. Among those crew members, we have another American, another Russian, and a guy from Japan joining the crew of the International Space Station. They'll be docking late tomorrow evening as part of Expedition 48. Now, every mission that NASA sends into space has to have a mission control center. People here on Earth dedicated to making sure that the mission goes smoothly. Now, for every mission that NASA sends up into space that has a human on board, like the old space shuttle program or the International Space Station, there's a mission control center right here in Houston dedicated to making sure that that mission goes smoothly, and it's right across the street at the Johnson Space Center. Now, because this is an international partnership with 15 different countries involved, there are mission control centers located all over the world for controlling the International Space Station. Now, that being said, here in Houston, our International Space Station Mission Control Center's job is to be the mission control center for all of the day-to-day operations of the International Space Station. Now, the International Space Station's main goal is to be a place of science, a place to do scientific research off of the Earth for all of us who are here on Earth. And as you can see on screen behind me, we're doing a lot of science on board the International Space Station right now, more than I have time to talk about today. However, I will highlight one of our experiments really quickly, and that is the human body experiment, and more specifically, the ocular health and fluid shift studies. Now, when you go into space, your body goes through a variety of changes. One of these changes has to do with how your fluids react, your blood. Here on Earth, your fluids are pretty evenly distributed throughout your body. However, when you go into space, this changes, and it all sort of shifts up towards your head. Now, this puts additional pressure on your brain as well as on your eyes, and can actually change the shape of your eyes. Now, some of our astronauts, when they go into space, have started reporting losing their vision somewhat when they get into space. And sometimes when they get back here to Earth, their vision does not quite go back to the way it was before they launched into space. So what we're trying to do with our ocular health and our fluid shift study is figure out exactly what is causing these effects, why it's affecting different people in different ways, and how to counteract these effects for future missions into deeper and deeper space. And there is the potential that whatever technology we develop from this mission or data we learn from this can help us with vision problems here on Earth, potentially in the future eliminating the need for glasses here on Earth. Another thing that happens to the human body when you go into space has to do with how your bones and muscles react. Here on Earth, we use our bones and muscles to fight gravity and keep ourselves upright. Well, in space, you don't have to fight gravity anymore, so your bones and muscles decrease in mass and density. Now, to counteract this, the astronauts on board the International Space Station are required to exercise for 2 hours every single day they are in space. No matter what, they cannot skip a day at the gym. And as you can see, they do have a variety of equipment they can use to exercise on, including a weightlifting device that uses resistance technology, a stationary bicycle, and a treadmill, which you can see up at the top of the screen. Now, in addition to maintaining their bodies, the astronauts also have to maintain the International Space Station. They can do that pretty much anytime they want to inside the vehicle. However, when they go outside on a spacewalk, or EVA, extravehicular activity, takes a little bit more time and preparation. During these spacewalks, or EVAs, the astronauts will spend, on average, 6.5 hours outside the International Space Station, maintaining and repairing parts and getting ready for future parts of the program. Now, from everything I've talked about so far, it may sound like the astronauts are always working while they're in space, that they don't get any time off. But this is not the case. They are government employees, so we do have to give them at least some time off. And during their time off, they can contact their families using a phone system on board the International Space Station. And they also have a library of movies and TV shows that they can watch in space. Now, the picture up on screen right now is of a projector screen. We set the astronauts up last year so they can get together much like they are in this photo as a little family on board the International Space Station and have a bonding experience watching movies together. Now, the first movie that the astronauts selected to watch together on the screen when they got up to the International Space Station was the movie Gravity. I'm not exactly sure why they chose that one because, I mean, if you're familiar with the movie, it does include the complete destruction of the International Space Station. So I'm not sure if I would personally want to see that up there. But it is one of their favorites. Another one of their favorites, by the way, is Armageddon. Now, to get our astronauts into space in the first place, we have to launch them aboard a rocket. The rocket we are currently using is Soyuz. It is a Russian-made rocket that launches from Kazakhstan and fits 3 astronauts at a time during a 6-hour minimum journey to the International Space Station. After at least 6 hours, the astronauts will dock to the ISS and spend on average 6 months living and working in space. Now, right now, Soyuz is the only way we have of getting people to and from the International Space Station. But this is not the case for much longer. In fact, in about a year, we will begin the Commercial Crew Program. This is a partnership between NASA and 2 private companies. Now, these 2 companies, SpaceX, who has made the Crew Dragon capsule, and Boeing, who has made the Starliner, have made both of these vehicles capable of launching 4 astronauts at a time to the International Space Station, bringing them home safely, and they will launch from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida beginning in late 2017. So late next year, they should begin these missions. Now, the reason NASA is having these private companies take over building and flying these vehicles, as opposed to NASA doing it themselves, is so that NASA can focus on the future of space exploration. And that future is Orion. Now, Orion is NASA's next human exploration vehicle and will be used to one day send astronauts deeper into space than we've ever gone before. But right now, we are in the testing stages. We've done our first test flight already. It happened December 5th, 2014. It was called Exploration Flight Test 1, or EFT1, and I have a video to share with you guys to give you a better idea of what it was like. Let's check it out.
Prop, go. Fire, go. Guidance, LSO, go. Weather, go. Pointing. Pointing, go. EH, go. GNC, go. ECOM, ECO, go. Engine start box, go. Rocket, range status, range green. Proceed to LH2 secure flight level. Status, go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And liftoff at dawn. The dawn of Orion and a new era of American space exploration.
At 7:05 a.m. Eastern Time on December 5th, 2014, a Delta IV heavy lift rocket lifted the Orion spacecraft into space for the very first time. This mission sent the Orion capsule on a 4-hour journey around the Earth, making a total of 2 orbits and reaching a maximum altitude of 3,600 miles from Earth. The furthest any capsule system has gone since Apollo 17 in 1972, 43 years ago. It was then time to point the heat shield back towards Earth and return for Earth's upper atmosphere. We re-entered at speeds reaching 20,000 miles per hour and temperatures up to 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Upon safely re-entering Earth's upper atmosphere, a parachute was used so we could slow down to safely land in the Pacific Ocean, where the U.S. Navy was sent to pick up the vehicle and bring it back to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida for processing. Upon returning to the Kennedy Space Center in Florida, the data from this mission, EFT-1 or Exploration Flight Test 1, was analyzed so that we can further refine the design of the Orion capsule for future missions into deeper and deeper space. Now, the first flight of Orion, EFT-1 or Exploration Flight Test 1, may now be over, but NASA's journey into deeper and deeper space is just beginning, and it will continue in the near future with our next test flight, which will include our new rocket. Now, our new rocket will be taking technology from NASA's past. From Apollo and Space Shuttle, we'll take the best parts of our rocket technologies and join them together, making the SLS, or Space Launch System, which will be the biggest and most powerful rocket system ever built when it's completed. We'll be using this for our next test flight happening in 2018. Now, that mission, Exploration Mission 1, will send an uncrewed Orion vehicle to the moon. It'll orbit there for a few days before coming back to Earth. Following that, no later than 2023, our final test flight, the first mission of Orion with humans on board, will be going into space. That mission will send 4 astronauts to the moon. They will also be orbiting there for a few weeks before coming back to Earth, doing science all along the way. Now, future missions of Orion will eventually go to the moon and land, possibly even setting up a base of operations there, like the International Space Station, so we can conduct science for extended periods of time. Eventually, we will also be going off to asteroids to figure out how they were formed and why they exist in our solar system. The end goal of Orion, however, is to get humans to Mars. We're hoping to get people to Mars in the near future, but before we can do this, we do have to perfect some of our technologies. Our spacesuit systems, as well as rovers and habitation technologies, all have to be perfected before we can send humans to Mars. We have to ensure we can bring them home safely first. Now, we do have a date in mind already for when we would like to have the first human footprints on Mars, and it's not very long from now, only about 20 years. The year 2035, and only in 2040, are we currently hoping to have the first human footprint on Mars, and who knows, maybe that first person to step foot on Mars is here at Space Center Houston today. Now, unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of today's presentation, but if you would like to learn more about anything I talked about, you can visit any one of those websites up on screen, or pick up one of the pieces of paper over on the side of the stage. We've got plenty of links and keywords to keep you up to date on all aspects of our space program. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have right over there by the end of the stage. And ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of all of us here at Space Center Houston and the Johnson Space Center, thank you so much for visiting, and I do hope the rest of your day is out of this world.